on the Real Mutants of New York City.
I gotta get out of here right now. I'm doing my best. You want a participation trophy? Move, you dumbass! I saved your dumbass, and I'm the one in danger! You're supposed to save me! You can't blame me for my boss's actions. Well, maybe if you thought about it for half a second, she shouldn't have gotten a flat-ironed Edgar cut before her villain rampage!
What? I mean, yeah, evil robots and stuff.
Sounds like you got a lot of feelings of inadequacy, too.
This is an emergency! Are you actually taking selfies right now? I have to find my brothers! I have to save them!
Unbelievable. A real live dude right here in our station.
I think they need to go into anger management or something before I play another board game with you.
Oh, anger management? Name one time that I had anger problem!
The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird and first appeared in Raw's studio comic book series in 1984. And for over the past 40 years, the franchise has evolved into a variety of different iterations. The original comics were known for their darker, more mature vibe, which parodied popular superhero tropes of the time such as Daredevil. Eastman and Laird's success led to the 1987 animated TV series, which introduced a lighter, more comedic version of the Turtles and cemented their place into pop culture. The Turtles even made their live-action debut in 1990 with a successful film, followed by several sequels and a wide range of new animated series and movies. Each iteration brought its own twist to the TMNT universe. From the more gritty and comic-accurate 2003 TV series to the darker, more mature 2012 series, leading up to the beautifully vibrant world of the 2018 animated show Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Tales of the TMNT differentiates itself from other iterations by combining elements from the past while including its own unique narrative style and character development. The series mainly focuses on leadership, teamwork, and selflessness, tying into the themes that have been prevalent throughout TMNT's history, but are given a new twist in this iteration. The series launched on August 9th, 2024, and is meant to take place in the same universe as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which serves as a bridge between that film and a sequel, which is in production. Like Mutant Mayhem, the series is a co-production of Nickelodeon Animation Studios and Point Grey Pictures, with Christopher Yost and Alan Wang serving as executive producers and showrunners. The 12-episode series divides itself into two main story arcs. The first arc of 6 episodes are dedicated on Bishop and her Mechazoids, and the second arc of 6 episodes follows the East River 3 as they attempt the heist of the Jersey Pearl. Before I begin diving into any of the episodes, I just want to express my main frustration with the constant ad interruptions, which severely disrupt the viewing experience. Just as something exciting is about to happen, I get a flood of 4 30-second ads that I cannot skip and randomly appear, which totally break the immersion. Additionally, the audio just randomly cuts off before returning to normal, which is another frustrating issue I think Paramount Plus should have some care for. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Let us continue with the wonderful tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Starting off strong with Episode 1, Leonardo Stands Alone. To start off, the episode's intro is really incredible. I truly enjoyed the theme song, and it really does help set the tone, alongside the sketchy animation style that totally gives it a punk rock vibe. Moving on, the actual episode itself has a lot of noteworthy facial expressions and action sequences with great detail to composition that gives dimension to Leonardo and the other characters throughout. As for the animation, the line art is really nice, and I really like how it adds a nice, raw, energetic feel that reminds me of concept art and really aids to Leo's character and personality throughout the episode. There are some moments where animation can feel kind of choppy, but it honestly serves the characters and it has a nice counterbalance to the more hyper-energetic action sequences. The main gist of this episode is that Leo gets separated from his brothers due to Bishop's trap leading to an explosion, having him fend for himself. This separation allows for deeper exploration of Leo's character, especially his self-doubt about being nothing without his brothers, which feels like a huge callback to Rise of the TMNT Leonardo. Both of the characters had similar statements. Overall, I really did like April and Leo's interactions throughout this episode and how she managed to comfort him in his moment of need. When it comes to Leo's biased humor, I think it really did help add a more lighthearted contrast to the episode's more serious moments when fighting off the Mechazoid. And the comic book style scenes were a really nice clever touch that fit with the episode's theme. And the voice acting done by Nicholas Cantu was really great. He really sells his character, and I think he does a great job voicing Leonardo. And I have to say, this episode is gonna earn a solid 9 out of 10 from me. Next up is episode 2, Mikey Does the Right Thing. I truly did enjoy this episode, and I thought that Mikey and Rod's interactions were really entertaining. I truly thought that Mikey's line where he says, "Being a teen is hard. It's like peak puberty. I don't know who I'm going to become, and I kind of miss who I am." I thought that truly stood out, and it perfectly encapsulates his own personal perspective as he struggles with his own adolescence, and I really enjoyed how this episode dives into his internal conflict as he tries to figure out his role without the support of his brothers. The episode follows Mikey as he saves Rod, one of Bishop's workers, from a Mechazoid attack. Rod's enthusiasm about meeting a mutant and his desire to become one himself adds an interesting dynamic to the story. Mikey's responsibility towards Rod and later on Pigeon Pete, who's created accidentally in a zoo, becomes the central theme. I did experience some technical issues during the episode, but it was mainly just because of Paramount's ad interruptions that cut off Mikey's lines. Again, this is something that they should truly fix because it is not aiding in the immersion of the experience whatsoever. But I did truly enjoy, on the general basis, of how Mikey and Rod did have a lot of banter in this episode, and I really liked how Mikey really put himself in a position where he is the bigger person, standing next to Rod when he is the one that truly is taking a lot of responsibility for Rod's misdemeanors and actions. This episode is going to earn a solid 9 out of 10 for me, purely just because I sometimes got quite annoyed with Pete Davidson, but he does truly encapsulate what it is to be an annoying Nepo baby, so props to him for that. Next up is episode 3, Raphael Thinks It Through. This episode mainly focuses on Raph's journey as it begins with him swimming to an island where he's soon to be captured by the gang that turns out to be the Purple Dragons. The episode uses humor and meta references, particularly all used by Raph, in a way where he mocks his brothers, which adds a nice level of self-awareness to Raph's character throughout the show. As for the character development, Raph truly does struggle with his physicality, as his broken ribs adds a sense of vulnerability that's hard to watch at times but effectively deepens his character. It does a fantastic job of highlighting Raphael's pain and his determination to fight despite it. In the action sequences, particularly the fight scenes, are animated with a lot of incredible fluidity and detail, and the use of the lighting, especially the fight in the chicken coop, enhances the intensity of the scenes when Raphael and Hun go head to head. The reconciliation moment between Raphael and Hun is truly a highlight as they realize that they have a shared sense of duty and weight in their roles. Raph's responsibility of protecting his brothers, and Hun being the strong-suited purple dragon. This mirrors Raphael's own internal conflict and adds depth to his character arc. Honestly, this episode was a really fun watch, but I didn't really enjoy the pacing of it, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. As for the Purple Dragons themselves, they were a pretty humorous watch, and I really did like how they felt like actual teenagers that are just trying to be the best gang that they possibly could be. And I thought that their overall designs were pretty interesting. I like the way that they all look and how they all have imperfect faces. This next episode is episode 4, Donnie Hangs Tough. Donnie's episode is honestly filled with a bunch of tension as he's pursued by Mechazoid number 4. There's specifically a sequence where Donnie explains his situation to the police who aren't taking him seriously, which is both equally humorous and frustrating, truly showcasing his growing desperation to save himself and his brothers. As for the character development, I really did enjoy how this episode had a fun and creative way to recount the events of the explosion with Bishop and the Mechazoids using a classic video game style flashback. Donnie's insecurities here are on full display, in particular with his frustration of feeling pressured by his brothers and his own inadequacy in his abilities. As for the dialogue, one of the lines that did stand out to me as Donnie and Bishop had their own little banter is that, "I'm sorry, is my existential struggle for survival messing with your social calendar? Do you need to reschedule?" I felt that really well encapsulated his sarcastic yet anxious personality. Speaking of which, the banter between Donnie and Bishop is really sharp and well written here, highlighting their similarities as tech-savvy individuals with opposing goals. The climax where Donatello finally hacks into Bishop's network and stops the Mechazoid is a really thrilling and satisfying conclusion to this episode, with a great balance to action and intellectual problem solving. And it actually helps to aid in the cliffhanger, which is Metalhead being hinted at as Donnie rebuilds the Mechazoid. Overall, I really did enjoy this episode, and it probably has to be one of my favorites so far in this season. I like the high intensity stakes and how Donnie really did feel like he was in a lot of trouble. I really enjoyed Michael Abbey's voice acting. He does a perfect job of representing Donatello's fears and insecurities on a really nice emotional level. Next up is episode 5, Bishop Makes Her Move. This episode shifts focus to Bishop and her ambitious plans for the Mechazoids. Her passion for robotics is really clearly demonstrated here, as she mentions her sister Elena, who inspired her to create machines that could aid humanity. Bishop's motivations here are well explored, and particularly her complex relationship with technology and her belief in using it to protect humanity from chaos. However, the irony here is that her creations, the Mechazoids, are the very source of chaos and destruction. The episode touches on the theme of unintended consequences, as Bishop's Mechazoids, which were designed to protect, end up being a threat themselves. The tension between Bishop's intentions and the reality of her creations helps to add depth to her character. Overall, the episode ends with Bishop facing her newest creation, the XS1, leaving the audience with a sense of foreboding about what's to come. As for the animation, throughout the episode, it really nicely played out Bishop's growing insanity on how she is persistent to eliminate all mutants because of the fear that it caused her after her own Mechazoids were being destroyed by Superfly's rampage. I did really enjoy how her perspective was really put in the spotlight here, and you truly get to understand why she came to be how she is now. As in general, I have to give this episode a solid 10 out of 10. Next up is episode 6, Night of the Mechazoids. The episode starts out with Leo mistakenly crashing through a restaurant window thinking it's a factory, followed by Raph smashing in on his motorcycle. This sets up their contrasting personalities, Leo's careful and apologetic nature versus Raph's recklessness and loud approach. The episode clearly explores the differences between Leonardo and Raph. Leo is more stealthy and mindful, while Raph is more bold and brash. This is shown clearly when Leo sneaks into a warehouse, but Raph just barges in. Overall, April's paranoia about the Mechazoids helps to add tension that deepens Leo's character, showcasing how he processes situations compared to Raph. When it comes to facing Bishop, Leo and April hear Bishop's voice and they are automatically terrified, but Raph is busy fighting off robots. The contrast shows Leo's hesitation and fear, while Raph just jumps into action without truly worrying. Bishop appears in a giant robot suit, leading to a tense moment where Leo saves Raph from being crushed. The brothers share a rare, heartfelt hug, thinking they were the last ones alive from the explosion. April discovers the Mechazoids are closing in, leading to a reunion of the whole team. Leo, Raph, Mikey, and Donnie all come together, and the joy that they share in this moment is really heartwarming, especially when Raph admits that he missed them all. The turtles get to gear up for a massive battle against Bishop, and the animation here truly does shine through as with the fight sequences. With fluid movement and visual dynamics, I truly enjoyed the way that the Mechazoids were really animated. Bishop here realizes that her Mechazoids are incredibly flawed when they target her assistant Rod due to his mutation in his eyes. The robots begin to attack her, and Leo steps in to save her, showing his protective nature even towards an enemy. Leo tries to call a truce with Bishop and leads the team to safety in a nearby restaurant, and the others work on stopping the Mechazoids. The episode balances out action and character moments like Metalhead's standout fight scene. As the Mechazoids charge towards Donnie and Bishop, Metalhead sacrifices himself, but Pitch and Pete saves the day by deploying an electromagnetic pulse that shuts down all the robots. The episode ends on a heartfelt note with the turtles mourning Metalhead, but Mikey reassuring them that he could possibly be fixed. Bishop turns into an offered position to stop mutants instead, adding a twist to her story, officially breaking the truce with Leo. Leo expresses his gratitude to his brothers, who humorously tease him except for Mikey, who finds it touching, and the episode wraps up quite nicely. I really liked how it balanced action, humor, and character development, and the contrast between Leo and Raph here and the emotional reunions made a really nice standout. I felt that the animation was really well done, and the episode's themes of brotherhood, fear, and compassion are really well handled throughout. I'm gonna give this episode a solid 10 out of 10. Starting off in Arc 2, Episode 7, Raph vs. Water. The episode kicks off with Splinter speaking in Vermin, while April, who is frustrated with a school project, needs a story idea. Raph steps in to help, suggesting a story about a storm, based off of their own experiences, which leads to the brothers filming Splinter as he dramatically narrates, which is actually Raph just dubbing himself over Splinter. The scene is visually striking, with darkened shadows adding a gritty vibe to the storytelling. A surprise change in the intro is also featured and is a really nice neat touch to the recent upcoming episodes. The new mutants are featured, and although they remained unnamed for now, their designs are really interesting. The sewers in this story are flooding, and Raph is visibly frustrated, stuck at home for 3 days while school is cancelled and his favorite kickboxing gym has flooded. The voice acting here really captures Raph's bottled up anger, and Splinter suggests he tries meditation. Raph does find a moment of peace, but is quickly shattered by the sound of a jackhammer. Splinter decides to assign the turtles various tasks and partners to get them out of the house. Raph, along with Ray Fillet and Scumbug, is tasked with finding the source of the jackhammer noise. As they search, Raph vents about how he uses his physicality to manage his anger, a trait that defines his character. When they locate the jackhammer, which is operated by a man named Steven, who is emotional about the drilling to the surface, believing it's what Raph wants. When Raph is suddenly attacked by a bunch of tentacled mutants hiding in the water, the creature reveals and leads to a fierce fight, with Raph showing his badass combat skills. The mutants here speak in a TV-like commercial language, adding to a layer of meta-humor to the scene. As the battle rages on, Scumbag warns Raph of the collapsing pillar, forcing them to move out of the way quickly. Raph feels disappointed in Scumbag and Ray Fillet, but his perspective does begin to shift after they save him from drowning. When being saved by Ray Fillet, Raph does acknowledge the importance of teamwork and acknowledges that his anger has been holding him back and blocking him from finding fulfillment in working with others. This does mark a really great turning point in his character, showcasing that now he can truly embrace the value on relying on his teammates whenever he needs help. When the mutants force Steven to drill a larger hole, causing a massive flood in the sewers, Scumbag is swept away and Raph's leg gets trapped between the rocks, leaving him struggling for air until Ray Fillet rescues him. The experience reinforces Raph's newfound appreciation for his team. As the episode continues to progress, new mutants that were actually shown in the new intro, named Lee and Sally from the East River 3, are now introduced. The tension builds as the brothers and their new allies prepare for what's to come next, with the fate of the city hanging in the balance. The episode ends on a cliffhanger, waiting to see what's revealed next, and the upcoming episodes will be featuring solo missions from the brothers' perspectives, setting a stage for deeper character exploration. I like that this episode offers a blend of action, humor, and character growth, in particular for Raph, but I didn't really enjoy the mutants and how they kept talking like televised TV commercials. I think that their bit went on for way too long, so I'm gonna give this episode a solid 8 out of 10. Next up is Episode 8, Mikey Takes Charge. This episode contrasts the personality of Mikey and Genghis Frog. Mikey, who is more of an optimist and always looking for a silver lining and going with the flow, even if it means for not standing up for what he truly wants. Meanwhile, Genghis is more pessimistic and believes that if Mikey doesn't like being the errand boy, he should do something about it. Mikey likes to point out that Genghis's glass half empty outlook, while Genghis pushes Mikey to make his own choices and to take charge. Mikey and Genghis are sent on an errand to a store by Splinter, and when they arrive, Mikey greets the owner, Miss Cattree, only to be misled by one of the purple dragons, who claims that she works there. Mikey, suspiciously, but not wanting to cause trouble, greets her with a smile. Meanwhile, Genghis is hilariously obsessed with Miss Cattree's cat. When in the store, Mikey fails to notice that the purple dragons are harassing the customers as he naturally sees the good in everyone. However, he eventually realizes that the purple dragons are robbing the store when he double-checks the groceries and connects the dots. Suddenly, when the ground beneath the store cracks and causes it to shake, Miss Cattree falls into the opening. But luckily, Mikey heroically jumps in and saves her, clinging onto a pipe. As the water rises from the cracks, Mikey begins to take charge and instructs everyone to climb onto the shelves for safety after noticing that people are looking up to him to save them. This is where Lee the eel is introduced, and she mentions that she was warned by Goldfin that the turtles would try to stop them from reaching the museum. Mikey, ever the optimist, starts chatting with Lee about museums, which confuses her, and she believes that he is mocking her when he is actually genuinely interested in understanding her motive. Mikey quickly realizes that he needs to take action and gives himself a pep talk and decides to rely on his improv skills. He cleverly pretends to apologize for mocking Lee's name, pointing out that Lee is eel spelled backwards, and then lures her towards a bunch of wires that can trap her away from the water. The scene is really nicely paced, and the slow motion sequence set to piano music helps to add depth and humor to the tension. The purple dragons eventually leave the store and are ungrateful for Mikey's help, and despite his best efforts, Mikey isn't able to warn the brothers about the East River 3, leaving the next to be determined. My final thoughts on this episode is that Mikey's growth as he learns to take charge and trust his instincts are really well done, and the dynamic between Mikey and Genghis adds humor and depth to the story. I really did enjoy the animation, especially in the slow motion sequence, which did add some really nice humorous moments. Mikey's ability to find common ground with his enemies, even when it's not reciprocated, showcases his unique approach to conflict. Overall, this episode was a really fun watch, and it's gonna earn a solid 9 out of 10 from me. Next up is Episode 9, Splinter and April Fight a Goldfish. The episode starts with a humorous touch as Raph dubs over Splinter's voice, making him sound like Batman, much to the amusement of the brothers. The sewers continue to flood due to the relentless storm, causing the roads to crack and rats to infest the area. April then calls Splinter to warn him that the worsening of the storm makes the sewers really unsafe. Out of nowhere, Splinter is suddenly attacked by Goldfin, leading to an intense fight. The action sequences are sharp, with impact frames and a nice soundtrack to enhance the scenes. The fight sequences are really nicely stylized, with the comic book-like flair using sound effects like pow and wham whenever a punch lands, adding to a nice nostalgic and dynamic feel to the action. After the fight, April arrives to check on Splinter and urges him to evacuate the sewers. However, Splinter is hesitant to leave the place where he considers his home and where all the good things in his life have ever occurred. Goldfin attempts to attack April and Splinter again, but luckily they manage to trap him in a tank, which then leads him to share his backstory, explaining how him and his friends became mutants due to Superfly's machine, forming the East River 3. As the flooding worsens, Splinter saves April, and Goldfin escapes his containment. Some of Goldfin's crew who have previously attacked Raph surround and trap April. We then get a really funny bit where the turtles interrupt the story and express doubt about the truthfulness of it, pointing out that if Splinter was swept away by the flood, then he couldn't have possibly heard Goldfin's tale. Then we cut back to the rats in the sewer, find Splinter, and despite Splinter's hesitation, he accepts their help in saving April. The rats launch an attack on Goldfin and his crew. During the battle with Goldfin, Splinter has a flashback of his sons and who they were when they were younger, reminding him of who he's fighting for. He reflects on the idea that home isn't just a place, but the people you share it with and the memories you get to create together. Splinter and the rats manage to defeat Goldfin, but as he escapes, heading towards the Natural History Museum and Pier, setting up the next episode for more action and resolution. The episode here is honestly packed with a bunch of action, nostalgia, and heartfelt moments, and I really like the use of the comic book style effects, adding for a unique flair to the fight scenes. While Splinter's internal struggle about what defines a home truly does add a lot of emotional depth. The introduction of Goldfin's backstory ties into the broader narrative, hitting more challenges ahead. I really did enjoy the interactions between Splinter and April, and I'm gonna have to give this episode a solid 8 out of 10 due to the fact that the pacing could have been just a bit better. It felt a bit on the fast end, especially when Goldfin was explaining his backstory, and I just would have liked just a bit more depth from him. Other than that though, I did really enjoy Splinter's perspective and his solo plot in this episode. Moving on with episode 10, Donnie Goes Deep. The episode begins with a flashback showing the East River Three, who are really upset about being kicked out of their homes by their family and friends. And despite this, they still wish the best for their loved ones and hope that the protective pearl will keep them safe. However, they realize that the pearl has been stolen by fishermen. Going back to the present, April urges everyone to speed up the story as her phone battery is starting to run low, adding for a bit of comedic pressure to the narrative. This episode is mainly focusing on Donnie and Wingnut, who are on a mission to find the generator. Both being left-brained and logical, Donnie reflects on how his brothers are more emotional and instinct-driven, highlighting the differences in their thinking styles. As they navigate the sewers, Donnie notices that Wingnut is starting to have a panic attack due to the darkness in the sewers. He tries to comfort her, showing a rare emotional side to him as he supports her through her fear. Meanwhile, the East River Three discover that the pearl, which was once protecting their home, is now at the History Museum. Once they discover this truly propels their quest to retrieve it back. Wingnut vents to Donnie about how Leatherhead has been acting strange lately and how she feels out of place being a mutant. Donnie suggests that Leatherhead's behavior may be due to being a mutant and an Australian in New York City. Wingnut also reveals that Leatherhead is interested in finding a way to reverse the mutation. There is suddenly a scene that intensifies everything when Lee swoops through the sewers, causing the ground beneath Wingnut and Donnie to crack open. Donnie tries to reassure Wingnut, who is paranoid about seeing a monster, but his attempts are interrupted as danger looms. Meanwhile, Goldfin and his crew seek out someone through an ad who could potentially help them steal the pearl back, adding for another layer of tension to the story. Wingnut mistakes an alligator in the water for Leatherhead, and Donnie informs her that TCRI tranquilizers can be used by mutants to revert their original forms, but before they can act, Wingnut is pulled into the water, and Donnie leaps in to save her from the alligator. Realizing the need to step outside his comfort zone, Donnie begins to communicate for what he thinks is Leatherhead. However, the real Leatherhead soon appears, and Donnie realizes that the alligator is truly dangerous. And the terror on Donnie's face really says it all as it reveals the gravity of the situation. The episode briefly flashes back to 3 baby pet alligators being thrown into the sewers, hinting at the origins of the current threat. Donnie falls into the water, trying to escape the alligator, and is saved by Wingnut. He references Star Wars, where his life flashing before his eyes in a moment of relief and humor. He then strategizes with Wingnut and Leatherhead to escape, helping to create a stand to trap the alligator's mouth. The animation in this intense sequence is really visually stunning, in particular with the water effects and the fluid motions of the characters. Leatherhead jumps into action, flipping another alligator that tries to attack Donnie, knocking it out cold. The trio then reaches the stairs and shares this really sweet moment together, appreciating their unique experiences as mutants and the friendships that they've formed. They then notice that the sewer tunnels are filled with rubble and debris, suspecting that the destruction was caused by Lee, the eel. They quickly hide as Raph, Scumbug, and Rayfilet emerge from the dust. Raph then warns Donnie that they're all in serious trouble, setting the stage for the next part of the story. The episode ends in the cliffhanger as Goldfin seeks help from Bad Bernie to steal the pearl, leaving viewers eager to see how this new alliance will play out. I feel like this episode really was well-rounded, and it balanced the intense action with a lot of character development. Donnie's growth as he steps out of his logical comfort zone in order to support Wingnut in a more emotional moment is a really nice highlight, and the dynamic between the characters continue to deepen. I really like the flashbacks in the story, and I really enjoyed the animation, and it really helped to keep me engaged with the story. Overall, this episode is going to get another solid 10 out of 10 from me. So far, I'm noticing that some of my favorite episodes have Donnie in it. He's a really, really great character throughout the series, and I enjoy his solo stories the most out of all the brothers. Next up is episode 11, Leo Saddles Up. The episode starts with Leo feeling embarrassed and wanting to skip his part of the story, especially in front of April due to his embarrassment. Despite his hesitation, April is eager to hear his side, and the episode delves into Leo's journey. Leo begins to open up a fortune cookie that reads, "You're a natural leader, with a bold and commanding presence that people can't help but follow," which reflects his true aspirations. This message becomes a central theme for the episode as Leo genuinely struggles with his leadership role. He finds himself worried about Pitch and Pete, who has flown outside of the sewers into a storm while trying to follow one of the East River Three. His concern for Pete showcases his protective instincts, even though he's also struggling to keep things under control. We're also introduced to Detective Hauser, a character who despises birds and adds a nice humorous and antagonistic element to the episode. The electric punk rock music that plays in the background really does enhance the episode's high energy vibe. The animation here really does shine, and I particularly really did like the spear frames, and it really captured the nice, exaggerated, and dynamic facial expressions of Leo. Even during the intense action sequences, the visual style remains engaging and pretty nicely fluid. Suddenly, the ground beneath Leo begins to crack due to Lee the Eel, and he manages to catch up to Pitch and Pete, only to be grabbed by him and flown into the air. Detective Hauser quickly calls for his dispatch team to go after them, and Leo lands in a place that's full of water pipes where he meets one of the East River Three, a mutant named Sally the Seahorse, who reveals himself from the shadows and quickly attacks Leo, leading to a really thrilling action sequence. I really liked how this episode signified Leo's agility and skill with his swords. And I did like the choppy scenes in the animation. I felt like it added a really nice unique touch that balanced with the fluid action. During the fight, Sally reveals that he's going to have children to take care of and he needs to find them a home, as him and his friends have been cast away from their friends and family. Leo is trying to show his empathetic side and promises to stay out of Sally's way, signaling a moment of understanding between them. Meanwhile, Pitch and Pete tries to warn Leo and Sally that Detective Hauser is trying to capture them. Sally then suggests blowing up the water pipes as a solution which would cause a flood, showing his desperation and willingness to do anything for his future family. As the chaos unfolds, Pete gets captured in a net by the detective. Leo rushes to make sure Pete's okay, showing his protective side once again. Despite Sally's persistence about blowing up the warehouse, Leo does remain calm and focused. In a surprising twist, Pitch and Pete later reveals that he can speak for the first time in the show, which ends up shocking Leo. This adds a nice humorous touch and marks a significant character development for Pete's character. As the building begins to fall apart, Detective Hauser and his crew escape, and the episode emphasizes the importance of teamwork and communication, as Leo learns that being a good leader isn't just about giving orders, but it's also about listening and understanding his teammates. Pitch and Pete thanks Leo for always trying to help him and acknowledges his patience. He also reveals that he knows what the East River Three intend to do when capturing the Pearl in the History Museum, which helps set the stage for the next part of the story. Overall, this episode was important and showcases Leo's growth as a character. Leo's journey from being a hesitant leader to someone who understands the importance of listening and empathy is really well executed. The episode ends on a suspenseful note, which in the revelation of the East River Three's plan, leaving the viewers with an early anticipation with what's to come next. Last but not least, the final episode is episode 12, The Pearl. We first start off with Goldfin consulting Bad Bernie, who informs them that the pearl that they seek is worth millions. So in a test of loyalty, Bernie tells Goldfin to eat a piece of sushi to prove his worth. This moment sets the tone for a high-stakes heist that follows. The scene shifts to a history museum which is flooding as Goldfin and his crew break into it. The alarm starts to trigger, but that doesn't stop Goldfin from stealing the pearl in a James Bond-like manner using a grappling hook. Meanwhile, Wingnut, Ray Fillet, and Leatherhead join Donnie in an effort to disable the dynamite that the East River 3 plan to blow up a seawall. Leo, Raph, Mikey, and Donnie get to reunite and they block the East River 3's path. As the Turtles and the East River 3 both try to reclaim the Pearl, we get a really stunning, well-choreographed fight sequence between the two. In the midst of the battle, Lee swoops in and electrifies the water, putting all the turtles in danger. However, Pigeon Pete blinds Lee, saving the turtles from being electrocuted. It really shows Pete's growth as a character and his importance to the team. Goldfin, however, takes advantage of the chaos to attack the turtles, leaving his crew behind as the building behind them crumbles. Pete, along with Genghis Frog, offers to help the river mutants while the turtles head to the pier to stop Goldfin. Then we have a really nice lighthearted moment where Leo says,
"Alright guys, let's finish this together."
Only for his brothers to mock him for making speeches and sounding just like Batman. Leo's humorous retort, "I am Batman," adds a nice and funny meta layer to the episode, showcasing the turtles' playful dynamic. As Goldfin hands the pearl to Bad Bernie, a stampede of rats that is being controlled by Splinter attacks them. This leads to one of the best scenes in the whole series, where Raph uses his side to block Bernie's escape, and the turtles stand behind him menacingly, staring him down, and Raph just does the most powerful punch ever, to the point where there's a brief impact frame shot of his skull just getting absolutely blasted. It was a masterpiece of animation, bro. Like, I cannot emphasize that enough. That was amazing. That was a highlight for me. Amazing, masterful, perfect, all of that. It gave me such Rise of the TMNT vibes. I miss that show genuinely so much. But that's a review for a whole nother day. Moving forth with Wingnut, Leatherhead, and Ray Fillet, as well as Scumbug, begin to freak out about shutting off the dynamite. Ray Fillet then grabs it and runs away, adding to the tension as the time runs out. The turtles try to reason with Goldfin, but he starts to fight them using their own weapons. His speed and skill allow him to tie the turtles together with a rope, creating a really dire situation. Then, Splinter arrives just in time to save his sons. Sally and Lee end up overhearing Goldfin admitting that he wants to use the pearl selfishly for his own riches and considers even buying new friends with the wealth it brings. Goldfin then traps everyone with the rope, including the turtles and his friends, into the river. In a thrilling turn, Pete actually uses his feathers to unlock the rope and free the group from underneath the water. Ray Fillet then swims towards them, and together they figure out a plan to blow up the ship using the dynamite. The explosion sequence was really intense and fun, adding to the episode's high-energy climax. The pearl is then returned to the sea. Lee and Sally end up leaving on a boat to find a new home away from Goldfin, and the episode wraps up with the revelation that Goldfin and Bad Bernie have survived the shipwreck, leaving their fate open for future encounters. Overall, I really did enjoy this episode. It helped to emphasize the themes of loyalty, leadership, and compassion, with Leo's growth as a leader and Pete's heroism standing out as key moments. The episode ends on a more suspenseful note, setting the stage for future conflicts and adventures. In conclusion, I would recommend Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to a broad audience. This includes longtime open-minded TMNT fans who have followed the Turtles from their comic book origins through the various TV series and movies, and who are going to appreciate the newfound elements and characters while enjoying the nods to the franchise's legacy. I would also say action and animation enthusiasts would have a really fun time with this show, as it has a lot of action sequences and really nice animation, which makes it a great choice for people that enjoy high energy and visually engaging shows. As well as the viewers that enjoy character development, the series does have a lot of different exploring themes such as leadership, teamwork, and personal growth, which I feel will be more well developed up into season 2, and I think that there is something to appreciate about the appeal of these themes. Next up is the newcomers to the TMNT universe. This show has a lot of new characters and storylines, and it makes it really nice and accessible for people that are new to TMNT to delve into this entirely different iteration, and it still provides enough context to enjoy the adventures of the turtles. Overall, this was a really fun show to watch, and I would highly recommend it to any of these people. If you made it up until this far, thank you so much. I appreciate your support. I'll see you all in the next review.